Welcome to Jazz Guitar Lessons, where we help guitarists learn jazz faster, express themselves more fluently, and have fun along the way. My name is Mark, and if you're looking to learn jazz, form better practice habits, and especially if you enjoy a French accent, make sure to subscribe. And we are here with Nick.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick Manella. I'm a professional jazz musician and educator from the Boston area in the United States. I've been doing the YouTube thing and my 10-minute jazz lesson podcast for quite a while now, and just really happy to be here today talking to Mark about the great Clark Terry and what he meant to me. Well, yeah, let's talk about Clark. You know, one of my favorite musicians who ever lived. And I was just lucky enough to go to a school where he was around all the time. So I got to hang out with him and really get to know him, and started hanging out with him outside of school. And it was just great. So I'm happy to talk anything Clark Terry and sort of what he did for me in the jazz world at large. And some of the lessons that maybe he taught that we don't see around enough these days, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd love that to see like what are your main takeaways like for you as an improviser, and also like the pedagogical takeaways, because sometimes it's not very flashy or sexy, like the phrasing thing you shared. I'm like, oh wow, like it's so obvious, but for me, just I'll speak to that as a guitarist. What I'm interested in is mostly how do we take the raw materials, like the scales or whatever we have as far as, hey, here's a chord and this is the correct notes to play, and how we turn that into like actual phrases that like almost like, you know, speaking. And how does that approach fit into that picture? Yeah,
and I think that you said it exactly. It sounds like you're speaking, and I think Clark really sounded like he was just speaking through the horn, more than almost any other musician that I've ever heard. And the thing is that he never, ever talked about theory, chord scales, anything like that. The way that Clark taught was simply to get you to play with him. And I think he knew, okay, well, if I get these students to play with me, they're going to pick up on the way that I speak the language, and they're going to start moving closer and closer to speaking it authentically, you know, which Clark was a very humble person, but he knew he could play, and he knew he had something to offer to all of us. And I think he really knew deep down, if I just play with these cats, they're gonna start playing like me.
Pick it up.
Yeah, exactly. And so in that way, I think it was really, truly the jazz tradition. And it was the way that he grew up, where I don't think anybody ever sort of sat him down in a Theory 101 class and made him do anything. It was playing with all the musicians that he came up with, and getting to play with Duke Ellington and Count Basie, and, you know, just absorbing it little by little by little. And he never talked about this, but I have the feeling that he would learn to do things and play songs, and then he would unpack it later instead of unpacking it first, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's great. It resonates with Victor Wooten. He wrote that book, and that's like he meets his mentor. You're like, nah, never mind. Like, it's too many notes. Well, notes theory, like just theory about the notes, but I mean, there's so much more to the language and the pitches that we play. So that's awesome. So speaking of which, like do you have any guitar students? You do? I'm assuming that play in combo.
Yeah, I do have a couple of guitar students. Absolutely.
So what's the magic? What's the secret recipe?
Yeah, so I think the closest I can come to sort of distilling it is he loved a certain number of tunes that he would play on every gig. And actually, here's another sort of lesson that I learned from him without ever him explicitly saying it to me. It's okay to play the same songs a lot and get really, really good at them, and have kind of like your signature set list, for lack of a better term. So like a tune that he would always play some select Duke Ellington tunes, because he was in Duke's band, and and he just absolutely loved that music. He would always play certain blues tunes. So one of the things that he would do is he would just constantly play those things over and over again with us. And for instance, like hearing Clark play the melody to, In a Mellow Tone, that was one of his favorite songs. So just sitting there and hearing him deliver the melody, where I think sometimes we think it's like a formality. Yeah. Oh, I just got to play the melody to get to my blowing, man, so I can, shred. Hearing Clark play the melody was like, wow, the melody is setting the stage for everything. And he could just have played the melody and then, okay, tune's over, and you would have walked home happy.
Oh, yeah.
So here's like a good way is so for instance, for me, the first time I ever hung with Clark, we played In a Mellow Tone, and I didn't know the changes, right? I quickly tried to figure out like what key it was actually in, but I was basically flying blind. And I think he knew that about a lot of us because he never asked, hey, do you know this tune? Just, hey, let's play In a Mellow Tone. That's a great song. So what happened was on the fly, I just kind of had to get this melody happening, right, with the great Clark Terry. And then later, I was able to unpack it into, okay, what is this? Is this a scale segment? Is this part of the melody? How does this part of the melody fit with the actual chord changes? Something like that, right? So what I was using is something that I had learned by ear, that I learned to play in a really swinging way. And that was the other thing too, is that you felt like you weren't doing a good job if you weren't playing it like he played it, right? So that was the number one thing, was playing it like Clark, with all the affections and articulation and, where he places the notes within the time, all that stuff. That was concern number one. So then later you go back and you actually think about the theory. Okay, how does this melody fit with this chord change? Is it a portion of a scale? Oh, then all of a sudden you're actually thinking about chord scales, but you didn't start there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you're playing the tune, the form is there, and you hum it, you hear it's like Happy Birthday. Exactly. I think we all sang Happy Birthday way before we could do anything else with chord scale analysis, whatever.
Exactly.
That's amazing. And then I think it's way more inspired. It's hard for us too. I mean, as a comping instrument, you look at the tunes, you want to play that tune, yes.
Right.
But then what are the changes? If we don't have any changes, we'll go like, ugh. But I think there's something smart and full-fledged confidence. I think the last time I played In a Mellow Tone was first year college. So it brings me back like 2005 or something. So if you want to make me publicly ashamed of myself, it would be a good tune to play. Is it in D flat? Is that or A flat?
It's actually in the key of A flat, yes, but it goes to the 4, right, which is D flat. Exactly. Okay. And I do, I recognize the struggle of people who aren't saxophone players, that you do actually have to know the chord changes, right? So I'm speaking more from a perspective of, well, even you guys play solos on almost every tune, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm speaking a little bit more from that side of things, how to be a little bit more creative when you solo. But yeah, if you can start to recognize that when you're playing the melody, let's take the first 4 bars of In a Mellow Tone, right? So we go. Okay, that's it. That's the whole melody, right? Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't like that string play. No, it's interesting because then it boils down to now I really hear it. And it's not just notes on a page. It's not really changes. It's just like I heard my inflection, ba, bu, do, ba, wah, like how I want to open on it. I guess, which is the osmosis part you mentioned about Clark.
Exactly. And you start to, so you hear Clark play it, and he might do something like, Right, so that last part, he would actually always do that. Right?
Almost.
Yeah, almost, exactly. And once you figure that out, your brain automatically starts to connect the dots a little bit, right? Where you go, okay, well, on that phrase, geez. Oh, well, that last note, it kind of feels like home, right? So you're thinking a little bit more from a human perspective and not like a music theoretician perspective. Where you go, oh, okay, wait, that concert D flat, it feels like home. Oh, now actually, if I think about it, that shape, it's basically just outlining D flat major 7. Oh, okay, cool. I think that might be a D flat major 7 chord right there, you know? But how did you get to that? That's the thing.
Fascinating. Oh,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I think one of my, coincidentally, a trumpet player, he was teaching improv class in Combo when I went to college in Montreal, and I think I think Clark had a big influence on him. I mean, who played trumpet back then, who didn't get influenced by Miles and whatever, and Clark, but that's what he would do to us, and just start playing a melody. It's like, what key? Don't care. Just play the thing.
Yeah, and Clark used to give us a lot of leeway. It wasn't like he allowed us to make all the mistakes because he knew if we made all the mistakes that we would eventually get where we wanted to be. So it wasn't like, oh, you're not playing the melody right. Like, what's wrong with you? Or, how come you can't figure that out? It was like, no, let's just do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And eventually we all got it. Here's another thing that he would do right at the top of the form when he played the melody. Here we go. Right? So there's so much information in that.
Oh, what are the notes?
Yeah, and then you go.
Oh man.
Yeah.
This is just
Yeah.
beautiful. Like
Yeah, so
like voice leading for a keyboard, but
you're just about to say it. Exactly. He was pointing out the voice leading. Right? So you've got this concert B flat 7 chord going to an E flat 7 chord, and then that's resolving to A flat major. And he, with what he played, he just, pointed out to you, here's the 3rd of the 1st chord turning into the 7th of the 2nd chord, going to the 3rd of the 3rd chord, right? So even if you knew nothing about it, if you heard Clark play that enough, you might play in your solo. Right?
And then you made the changes.
Exactly. You made the changes even though you didn't know what they were, which is pretty amazing. That's the genius. That's the genius of it, of I think a lot of the way. So the cool thing is that because Clark came around so much, they would also bring in a lot of Clark's friends to play with him, right? So I got to, Jimmy Heath, James Moody, James Williams. I mean, name somebody, from that era, and they were probably at my school at some point.
Oh my
And one
God.
thing I noticed is that they all were very similar in that way. It was never like, please sit down for a lecture, and then I will take questions after. It was, get your horns out, we're going to play. And then all the questions and all the things that they talked about were a result of the playing first.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really love that about sort of that generation of musicians. And I catch myself a lot not upholding that tradition by trying to explain stuff, but I try to always get back to it.
Yeah. I mean, but in our defense, we have PDFs and stuff. I mean,
Right,
we have
exactly.
iPhones, so it's okay. I mean, there was one of my teachers. He was playing mostly alto. Well, he was doing alto and baritone sax pretty much like 6 months on the draw. Dave Turner, Montreal guy.
Cool.
I don't know if he's still around. And I used the Amazing Slowdowner. You know that software, one of the transcribe softwares, and I was like, well, it's like cheating, because the guys, they would run their records and they would have to buy another vinyl because, and he was like, he was an older guy and just said, that's fine. Like, can you do more? I'm like, well, yes. So put at 75% speed, create a little loop. I mean, Ed Bickert voicings and whatever would never have gotten from just a vinyl. So he's like, it's the
I agree with you. And I think if a lot of those cats had the tools, they probably would use them. And if they had YouTube, they probably would have been on there checking out lessons. Like, I really do believe that they were up for anything. They just loved the music so much, and they wanted to be as great as they possibly could. And I think they would have used all that stuff. Here's a perfect example on the slowing down. Melissa Aldana regularly posts her transcription process, and sometimes she starts at like 40%. So if it's good enough for Melissa, it's good enough for me. That's what I always say.
Yeah. And it's funny how these things, well, not funny, but we could see how it influences the music. It impacts the music. Like, just a radio broadcast influenced the music to an extent that was like unprecedented in history. And I was like, YouTube, electronics, the composers, guys like the Methinis of this world, they all use all the stuff. It's the technology of the era. And I was like, hey, let's do something with it. So, awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. But that was kind of how Clark approached everything. And I guess another thing that he taught me was don't be afraid to reach back to the music before the music you ultimately want to play as an artist. So if you want to play, bebop and beyond, I think you still have to reach back a little bit further. And he definitely taught me that.
Yeah. Roots, essentially.
Exactly.
Because I spoke to Jordan recently as well. It's like, well, we should just aspire to play the tune and ask Duke, or Chick Corea, like, what did you mean? Like, what did you have in mind to pay tribute to that instead of going into, the ozone of, Lydian dominant.
Exactly.
And we all do it, but it's okay. It's I told that my students recently. Some jazz is just more athletic than others, and it's okay. It's just more like a sport.
Yep. And it's exciting. That was one of the reasons I got into jazz, was hearing those athletic performances and whoa, the fireworks, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. Who, Brecker or?
Yeah, I love Brecker. I was a big fan of Chris Potter coming up. I got to see him with Dave Holland's band, and it just, like, when I was in high school, and it blew me away. Branford Marsalis was a big inspiration for me when I was younger. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, Brantford. Did you hear A Love Supreme?
Yes.
Tribute? Oh my God.
Unbelievable.
I'm like, for people would say, say the old guys, oh no, it's not a cover. It's not a tribute. It's just somewhere it's like, let's do that again with a fresh thought. I'm like, that worked. Yep. It worked out for me.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yep. What's Calderazzo?
Calderazzo, yeah. One of my, Jerry Bergonzi was a huge influence on me because I grew up in the Boston area. George Garzone, Billy Pierce, a lot of those cats that, they could play anything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So there was a Brecker, late 70s, I guess, what is the brothers, heavy metal bebop. Have you heard that one?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's nuts. There's a blues on there. I don't know what it's called, but it's sort of a heavy shuffle thing. And then the changes to just get to a 1-4-5. But the head in is like the upper structures and stuff's fascinating. Hey, speaking of, I'm a huge Chris Potter fan, too. By the way, the Dave Holland Quartet had a big impact on me early on, and some of his big band things. Chris Potter's just Chris Potter. Yeah. But speaking of old school, but not old school, over the weekend, I found out a tribute record to Duke. It's called Joyful Noise or Joyful Noises. Have you heard that?
No, I've never heard of this before.
Mid 90s.
Okay.
And It's Don Sebeski. I think he's a Toronto guy. He was an arranger. And I didn't even know Don. We played one of his tunes as a like college performance, and my teacher, the same trumpet guy, Charles, mentioned, oh, you should check out this guy. And there's not a lot of on Spotify, but you know, one of the tracks, like they play Satin Doll, it's fully arranged, like Phil Woods is the feature. I'm like, okay. And then the other one, there's John Pizzarelli, and there's like, it's all like all-star. Ron Carter plays bass on 2 or 3 tracks. I'm like, oh, wow. And like, probably the album that swings the most on earth. Like, it's
great. I got to check that out, man. Yeah, good. I've got something new to listen to now.
Well, something new and old, because there's, you know, Mood Indigo on there, and there's like Chelsea Bridge. Okay, great. So starting with the tune, that's what I was discussing with Jordan, going like, hey, okay, we have the tune, we can have the triads and our scales, but let's make sure we know the head. About the chit chat skibbity dap, like whatever approach Clark does. Could you just talk maybe a little bit to that? And
sure, absolutely. So Clark famously developed what he called his doodle system of tonguing.
Doodle system. You know, we didn't tongue out ta 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 ta. We say doodle doodle.
And it was very trumpet specific, meaning if you wanted to do exactly what Clark did, you had to play the trumpet, right?
Right.
But the amazing thing about it is that it was designed to turn syllables that you would just speak and sing into, okay, now I'm playing the trumpet and it sounds like that. So the amazing thing about the system is that it works for everybody. You know, I've talked to guitar players that, oh, Clark's doodle system was it for me. You know, like it really taught me the proper length for the notes and how to attack them and all that stuff. And on saxophone, you can't say doodle la lule lula le lulu. Like you can't physically say it, but it translates, right? Once you get it. Again, another thing that Clark gave us was that he never sort of asked us to do it on the instrument. We would just sit around and sing this stuff. And then you could go to your practice room and figure out how to make it sound good on the saxophone or guitar or drums or whatever you play, piano. So the big thing about Clark was that he had these syllables: doodle, lottle, ladle, and loodle. Right?
Again?
Yeah. So doodle, lottle, ladle, and loodle.
So lay, la, loo.
So doodle, la, ladle, loodle.
Woo!
Yeah. So actually, he used to do this all the time. He would say, okay, here we go. Doodle, doodle, lottle, lottle, ladle, ladle, loodle, loodle, doodle. And he would do this and he would build it up. And then he would start putting them together. Doodle, ladle, ladle, doodle, doodle, ladle, ladle, doodle. And then he would eventually get to doodle, ladle, doodle, doodle, ladle, doodle. So if you think about what that does, what's the ultimate turnoff from a jazz musician when they're playing eighth notes? They go ta 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 ta, right? So everything's very separated and the articulations are very harsh. Ta is a pretty harsh articulation. So it got you to soften the ta into some type of D syllable. And then what it also did was it got you to connect your eighth notes, because doodle, that's 2 eighth notes, but there's no space in between them whatsoever, right? Doodle la ladle doodle, doodle la ladle doodle, doodle la ladle. It just swings without you even trying to make it swing.
When I watch your video, and you're saying it now, it's like I can't even do that. Well, I'm French. There's also that, but I mean, It's so. I hear it in the players, and you make it sound so easy and obvious. But I mean, that's a real secret. And again, I'll sort of do a slight tangent into how I teach, and the kind of students. The questions are about like, but what was that scale? What was that special chord? What was the substitution you used? Like. Right. It was actually just a C major scale. What do you mean? Right. But if it's done a certain way, I think that's the how to put notes together, which is fascinating.
Right. And he would do it on, actually, I was just watching a video with the great Steve Wilson, the great alto saxophone player. And he said he was on a gig with Clark, and they were playing, everybody was playing, and it was notes flying around, all this crazy stuff. And then Clark played 2 choruses on 1 note. And he was like, it just destroyed all of us. Like the two courses that he played on that one note were like so much hipper than everything we had all been playing. It really made a big impression on him. And I think that that's one way that we can really channel Clark and his teachings is like, don't try to do Clark's doodle system over giant steps. Instead, just play a blues. You know, just play. That's the beauty of a blues is you can play the same thing over every measure and it sounds great, right? So I think we're always trying to put everything together. And one of the things that Clark taught me was like, you don't have to put everything together. Just focus on the time. Just focus on the articulation. Just focus on making it swing, because that's going to carry over to everything.
I agree with that. I think personal story, and I don't claim, like I don't have any claims to fame in any regards in the jazz world. I mean, I say it to my students. I know the game. I don't play in a league. You know, it's just I've done my homework. I'm like, yeah, this is how you play, but I wouldn't never attempt to come near a court for a basketball game. But I know the rules.
Right. I hear you.
It's easy. Like it's easy from the stands also to criticize. Like it's pretty
right.
You know, but as things go, I think for a while in my playing, I did that. I was just focused on the phrasing. I would show up, have gigs and stuff, and I would disregard the changes. And some of my friends were like, well, you still play out a little bit. I'm like, what do you mean I play out? I just focused on trying to make it be connected with what I'm playing. And eventually I think the rest, like my ears and stuff, started to catch up, and I kept the phrasing side of what I heard, and then making the changes and all the stuff happened. So I'm like, that's way better than trying to front load all the stuff and then say, well, get all of this, then swing. Like, no, swing first. That's simpler.
Right. Because it's really tough to listen to somebody play really great information, super hip notes, you know, all the right stuff, all the right extensions, all the hippest, you know, superimpositions. But if they're doing it in a way that's not going to connect with you. And we have to remember that at the end of the day, right? Like jazz goes all the way back to like West African rhythm where the band was just drums, right? So really it's that rhythm and the phrasing and the attitude with which you present it that is at the end of the day really the only thing that matters. Then you can start to add those layers of, well, I'm super hip, I have really, really good time, I can present it in a badass way, and check out all these crazy devices I've got under my fingers.
And I can go as deep or not deep into those fancy devices as I will. Quoting the Bill Evans, Mr. Glasses, saying jazz is about feeling. You know, he's getting interviewed in mid-60s going like, yeah, it's about feel. And going like, yeah, but, you know, Chopin and like whatever. Like we heard those harmonies, we've heard them before, but just we're putting them in a, like, well, African beat context. That's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I agree. And I will go and you're ready for, they call it blasphemy. There's some. Oh, I'm not gonna do a blasphemy on the YouTube. No, I won't. But you know,
do it.
Grab me a drink or like,
exactly.
Say who you don't like. But there are people that have that frenzy intellectual thing that's so connected. I'm like, yes, thank you. And there are people that have that, but like it does nothing for me, like spiritually and emotionally. I'm like, you're correct about that minor 7 flat 5. Like all the way, and you have good feel and good time, and like everything's there. But I mean, it's supposed to feed my soul as well, and I guess that's where like taste comes in. I'm like, I can admit that's like pretty good, but you know, so.
Well, I'm always struck by some of like the bebop masters. Like it's very clear. Like you listen to Barry Harris talk about hanging out with all the bebop legends. They were very, very intellectual. They were having intellectual conversations about the music. They were hipping each other to very, very cerebral, like this is a structure over this and we explore it this way. But I mean, remember Bird like grew up in Kansas City. So what do you think he had since birth? He was listening to this swingingest music. So that was just like a given, right? Yeah. The first band he ever sat in with was Count Basie.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like that stuff was all just a given. He had a sort of a lifetime of that. And then he had the ability to dive into the intellectual stuff and really change the face of music, right?
Yeah, I think that's a forgotten piece, that it was such a given, so hard that we didn't even imagine a world in which that wouldn't be the case. So for me, like I was born in the mid 80s, like Ghostbusters soundtrack, Metallica. I mean, that's just this, and we heard the synths and whatever. So I appreciate jazz artists that also don't pretend like all this stuff did not happen. Like it's part of our history. But it reminded me about that era, Dexter has a track on which there's Freddie Hubbard. That's relatively untrained. You know which ballad I'm talking about?
I think so. I can't recall the name of it, but
anyways, he gets to the solo. I think probably the solo is just like BA or something. It's just half form because it's ballad. And he just starts with a pickup and he grooves. He takes that note. It's not even like attacked. It's just friggin' sustained. Like it's not Clark Terry, but I mean, he was much younger. Right. But just he sustains that note and just the arch of the vibrato in it. And when he decides to let go, it's like, man, thank you. And Dexter was not like a shredder either, but that was such a moment in my listening career to go like, oh yeah, you can make a note sound like a ton of bricks, then that's it.
Exactly. And you can't take that and turn it into a, lesson you can write down. You just have to sit there with the wonder of it and listen to it over and over and over again. And then some part of it ends up rubbing off on you.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's not sexy. That's the thing. I guess as YouTubers, like we're trying to make things sexy. It's like, no,
right.
Yep. Keep referring back to like, yeah, you got to play the tune. Oh, yeah. So why are we playing? True. Play the song, play with good feeling and whatever. All right, that's been amazing. Is anything else you want to share?
No, that's about it. I mean, it was just a real pleasure talking to you and, getting to connect. And hopefully we can do it again sometime.